Happy Friday. Still playing with distances on this camera here. I figured, okay, so it's too close, so I'll just sit back further. But I don't know, it doesn't work. And I'm trying this little foam thing here on the microphone. See if it makes any kind of a difference. So, also playing with the camera, my daughter turned me on to this little guy here. Stiff as all get out, but so I'm trying to figure out what to do with the base so I can get closer in while I'm machining and stuff. A lot of new guys, new lathe owners contacted me, been helping them out privately. A bunch of people too on the verge of purchasing a lathe. So, mill, I don't know why a lot of people, well, probably I know why a lot of people don't get the mill. It's because it's kind of expensive. But I did a video on the basic tools for the mini lathe. I want to do a basic video on tools for the mini mill. Hopefully people will get more into it, because with these two machines I can basically do almost anything I want. It's been a blast. I remember when I first got the mill, scared to death. But it's really a cool, easy, fun machine. So first I'm going to take you over to the bench and show a little bit more of this book that Noel sent. And then I'm going to show my opinion of what the basic set of starter tools are for the mini mill. So I hope you enjoy, and I hope you get something out of it. Continuing on from where I last left off with all these micrometer caliper, crazy. Yeah, you never know. I've been doing this stuff my whole life, so a lot of this is not new, but I'd like to go through it anyway in case I do pick up something, and I have picked up some things. And I'm thinking, the guy out of high school, going to be a machinist, this book is tons of information for him to learn everything. So layout, there wasn't too much. Come on, I'm going to have that problem. My fingers are so dry. Not a whole lot of new anything here, at least to me. It's squares and the different tools and how to draw lines. Kind of kick though that they show some of the different angles here to things, and then I don't know, that's weird that that's there in the layout section. Hand tools, this was kind of fun, because I've always called those dikes, and I know they are diagonal cutters. Actually say diagonal pliers, they're cutters. Box cutters, and interesting that the jaws have to be parallel, because I've got some of those clamps. And I'll play with them next time a job comes up to see how that works out. Torque wrenches. This was interesting too. Tongue and groove pliers. I've always called these channel locks. My dad called them channel locks. They're always channel locks. So never heard of tongue and groove pliers before. Torque wrenches, crescent. They say the movable jaw always has to be in the direction of rotation, which I knew. But somebody did a YouTube video trying both ways to see if it could break something. Nothing new. Yeah, I like all this stuff. I did a whole video on that, if you guys remember. If you haven't, go look it up. You'll know all about every screw type. Chisels, nothing new. Hacksaw was interesting. I should have marked where it was. But it says you need to tighten it until it pings. What's a ping? I was playing with mine. Now this is as tight as I want. Is this ping? I don't know. Sounds more like a dud to me, but. So, blade has to be, I wish I could find the exact words. Tightening the blade until it pings. Yeah, there it is right there. There should be a significant adjustment remaining to permit tightening after you put the blade in. Tighten the blade until it pings when snapped with your fingers. I don't know how that's snap, but okay. Enough of my rambling on about that. all the different cuts and teeth, and yeah, they say teeth are supposed to be pointing forward, so you cut on your pushing action, then yeah, there's 10,000 different files and how to file, and don't tap your file on the table, which I always do to clear it out because it's brittle and it'll break. And this got interesting. Yeah, I didn't know. There's, yeah, unified threads. There's also unified national, come on. Included a unified national extra fine, unified national 8 series, unified national 12 series. I didn't know those. My dad probably did, but that's because they're used on things from 1 inch to 6 inches in 1/8 and 1/4 inch increments. So that was a kick to see. What else? Oh, and this thing too. It's the class of fit. I don't see this marking on anything. It's not on the taps. It's not on the dies. It's not on any of the bolts that I've got. And they say right down here, I guess it's UNC-2, which would be a free fit. Class 1 loose fit, free fit, medium fit, and close fit. So I'll be looking for that. But I went through a bunch of taps, dies, everything. I don't see any indication on it as to what the fit's going to be. Oh, no, I didn't pass that page yet. So yeah, all about taps and bottom taps and taper taps, and I marked this page because there's all the information for metric and imperial threading, so I'll be checking that against the formula. I guess they're saying this is all for 75% thread engagement. Is this one also? Metric doesn't say thread engagement. Interesting. That's right, major, minimum, tap drill diameter. Tap drill diameter. 16, yeah, it goes from 1.6 all the way up. I think all of them are in here too. Yeah, they are. Every thread pitch there is. So, oh yeah, someplace they were saying about, yeah, the rethreading dies, and then when you get as far as you can to the shoulder, flip it over and it goes further, so. And they're saying chamfer. This particular picture, that chamfer isn't enough to help. But I always chamfer. Yeah, here's the threads, flipping it over. Getting it closer, so, and then we get into bracers. So that's as far as I've gotten so far. All right, first, all of this is strictly my opinion. It's based on quite a few years of experience here with the mini mill, and this is specifically for the guy that just bought a mini mill or is going to buy a mini mill. And the first thing I'd recommend you do is go watch my video on the mill and mods and upgrades, and I'll put a link in the description to it, so you can watch that first and then come back and watch this video. So these are the basic starting tools that I would recommend through my experience for the beginner, the newbie. Now I bought the Grizzly lathe and it came with this chuck, and this was what I used in the beginning. I didn't know anything at all. I was just starting myself. So I use this for drilling and end mills and milling and so on. And yeah, a lot of people beat me up because it's not stable enough, you've got run out in the chuck, blah, blah, blah. So I did use this for a long time for milling and drilling. And my lathe did come, or mill did come with 2 collets. Flip them over so you can kind of read them, I guess. This was at 1/2 inch and 3/8. Now mills do come in just a few sizes. There's like 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch, 3/8, 3/4, so on. There's only a few, but the problem with using these is this was all I had, and I couldn't find any place other sizes to buy to use. So what I did was finally, and I did it for more than one reason, I went to the ER32 collets. I'm not going to bring the one out. Just you can watch any of my videos on the mill and you'll see the actual ER32 in the spindle spinning and using it. And this is one. I bought everything off of eBay. I bought all of the imperial collets, so I have every size all the way up. It goes up higher than 3/4, but, and I bought the entire metric set. It ran just slightly over $200. And for the lathe, this is great because I can hold any kind of material I want, any size, something that I just turned, which is an oddball size, I can hold it. But these work great in the mill because now I've got the size, any size I need for any end mill I need. And they're real easy. I know some people have bought them and told me, if you look down in there, they said, oh, mine came defective. That's not defective. It is off center so that you can snap it in and out. And I didn't know when I first got it that you were supposed to snap it all the way in. So this solved a lot of problems. Milling got nicer, run out disappeared, became a lot more stable. So I went that route. You can stay with the chuck, the chuck and the collets or whatever you want to do. So now you've got basically something that you can start milling with up on top. Next thing you do is you need to be able to hold your work. And yes, these are only a few of them. I bought the entire set, not knowing any better. Maybe I shouldn't say that, but yeah, you can spend a lot of time trying to clamp things down to the table using the T-slots and setting things up. This goes this way, and these clamp on here for different heights to hold things. And I realized real quick, this is just too time consuming. So what you can do, and this is just the small one, you can buy, these are called toolmaker vices. I've got 3 sizes. I just don't want to bring out the big guy. I've seen people using the larger one. And I also, if you watch my videos and on my website, which is shown in the splash screen at the end of every video, and my email address, the vise that I chose. So this I've seen people use. It's really nice and precision. Clamp it down and you're ready to go. The vise that I bought was from China, and it took a long time before I realized the jaws were crooked. They were tilted. So I had to wind up making my own jaws to straighten everything out. And lo and behold, suddenly all my work is nice and square. So either way you want to go. These are pretty inexpensive. They're on Amazon, they're on eBay. This particular one came from eBay. I think it was $20. I use this in my vise for a lot of other things. But so now you've got a way to clamp parts that are, it's pretty quick and easy to do. Next thing you need to do is square up your vise. So I just move this to the side. So you need a test indicator. There's dial indicators. This is a test indicator. You got to be very careful with it. There's jewels down here. If you whack it sideways, it's gone. So very sensitive. This is designed to be bent. You can angle that if necessary. I made my own little holder. It goes up in a collet. You can put it in the chuck. This guy goes in there, and then you can run it back and forth along your jaw so you can make sure that your vise is not angled. This came from Amazon. It was pretty cheap. It's very accurate, turns out, and I like it. Turlin. I think it was $40, $45, something like that. So now you can hold your work, and you got your vise all squared up. So the next thing you want to do is you want to get end mills. You're going to start milling. These are just a few of the ones that I have. When I started, I was on Amazon buying Niagara cutters. They're nice, they're good. You can find them mispriced from time to time. There's cobalt cutters, which are not supposed to wear out. These are high-speed steel, and you can see the color difference in it. Once you get really experienced, you'll be able to spot a cobalt or carbide, whatever, cutter real quick. This is Grizzly. I'm not sure what to really recommend. It depends on what you're cutting, whether it's steel or aluminum. I'm primarily aluminum, and I had started out, like I said, with just a whole bunch of Niagara cutters, and the finishes were just excitingly average. At one point, I bought an entire Grizzly set of end mills, and they too were just excitingly average. I got a plus on this for some reason. Oh, this is off spec. There are specs for what size it's supposed to be, and this is more than a 1/2 inch. At one point, a machinist friend of mine turned me on to Travers Tool and these 3-flute cutters. If you're doing aluminum, this is hands down the way to go. I bought over $100 worth of them to get just a few sizes, and I use them only on aluminum. I don't dare even try it on steel. Steel, a lot of people like turning it. Speeds and feeds do count, and if you're at a too high in RPM, you'll burn up the tips instantly. It's just gone. So you need lubricant, regular motor oil or something for steel, low RPM. So not too much I can tell you about end mills. So go with whatever you want to go with, and that's that. Next thing you're going to want to do is chamfer on the mill. There's a lot of different cutters, dovetail cutters and things. I started out with this guy, pretty small. It was inexpensive. I think it's a Grizzly. I don't know. Most of my stuff too is purchased off of Amazon. Very little is eBay. So later on I wound up adding a bigger one. These are 45 degrees for doing chamfering on parts and stuff, to get the burrs off, make the edges look a little bit more professional. There's dovetail cutters. I use these to make tool holders for the lathe, for the quick change tool post. And I also have a video showing making an indexable dovetail, which works really nice, especially on aluminum, but on steel, it's perfect. So you can get into this if you want to do, I would say you're going to definitely start chamfering parts to make them look good and to get rid of the burrs. So the other thing too, so speaking of burrs, there's deburring tools, all kinds of them all over the place. You can see where this one came from. They're all, I think, kind of the same. There's no-goes and really expensive ones and fancy ones, but this does the job. Doesn't do the job on holes, so you can get something like this. I just use this by hand. I'll run this in a hole. I got this from Craigslist, a machinist that was trying to downsize, and that's my favorite. There's a bunch of these all over the place that you can get into. You can even use spotting drills, which you're probably going to need anyway if you're going to start drilling on the mill. Another trick I learned was to just use a stone, and you just rub it on the edge, and it gives you a beautifully deburred, nice sharp looking edge, very professional looking. So just a regular stone. It loads up with aluminum real quick, and I figured I'd just use an old piece of steel, and it kind of gets it all out. So that's a deburring. You're going to want to do that, and also the chamfer with the mills. Next thing you need to do, or you're going to want to do, is fly cut. This one I made. There is a set of black ones that you see out there that are really cheap with high-speed steel cutters in it. Don't get that set. The cutters, they're not formed yet. You have to have a nice grinding station and a honing stone and stuff. and understand how to grind all the angles to make them actual cutters. So that's why I made this guy and used the 3/8 indexable. I can change the inserts out to a bunch of different types, and you can easily fly cut with this. So now you have the ability to clean up surfaces. What else can I say about it? I don't know. So you're going to want to fly cut. Yeah, you can also get into something like this. This was a couple of years learning curve. I got this from Newegg. I've seen them all over the place. I guess I'll put a link to this actual part number. They're on Banggood. They're all over the place. And I made the holder, the arbor for it. You can buy it with this, the head and the arbor off Banggood. It's pretty cheap. These are the only inserts. The inserts that come with it are total trash. They give you a god-awful finish. One of my subscribers turned me on to these inserts, and now I can use this guy pretty much so just as well as I can the fly cutter. So $25, and it was like $12 for the inserts. So now you've got that down pat. Next thing is you're going to be drilling. If you're going to drill, you can use the chuck. You don't have that much clearance in the mini mill, so I recommend the stub length. This is Chicago Latrobe 69900. Beautiful set, well worth the investment. I think it was around $120, $125. All the sizes there are. They're extremely sharp, beautiful drill bits. I use these all the time on just about everything in the mill to drill. What else? Now, next thing you're going to need to do is, while you have the vise, you're going to need to raise things up, because inevitably you're going to have a piece of material that's below the jaws, below the surface of the jaw. So I didn't have that much knowledge or money in the beginning, so you can use simple plastic. I've got a video on how to make them absolutely perfect. You can go and look that up. So now I've got my own homemade inexpensive parallels. I also use them as like soft jaws, because originally I had the steel jaws, but I can mount something in between them and I don't have to worry about marking up my material. That's how I started. And I also had made out of aluminum. You know, you want to inevitably hold something round vertical, so it's pretty easy. You just clamp it in the vise. This one, if I had to hold something horizontal, I've got the same thing. So you can do stuff like this, or this is a set that I bought from the little machine shop. Wasn't that expensive. They are nice and accurate too, and parallel, what I meant. Because the jaws are so low in the vise that I bought with the steel jaws, I could only use the first 3 sets, because the 4th set was too high. Now that I made my own jaws, I can finally use the 4th set in the vise, and so this will give you, you'll be using them all the time. This is constantly coming out of the drawer. So little machine shop, not that expensive. Get yourself a parallel set. All right, next up, you're going to need an edge finder, because you're going to have to figure out where you are to start milling something. Bunch of different ones out there, wigglers, this, that. This is a Mitutoyo. There's also Brown and Sharp, both pretty much of the same price, $10, $15 off of Amazon. Works great for finding the edge, and if you have a DRO, you can zero out your DROs. Now you can start knowing how far in and over and stuff you're going. Another thing you're probably going to want to do is tap. I've never really threaded on the mill. I'm always tapping, and I'm kind of a perfectionist, so I like to make sure the tap is straight. I made this. It's spring-loaded. Goes up in a collet, the tap goes in the end of it, and I know it's holding it absolutely straight. I can put a wrench on it, and I can turn and thread and go forward and backwards as I need. So I don't think I've seen anything like this on the market where it's a cup. There's ones I have that have a point, but not every tap has that hole for the point to go in. Most of them are all just a dome, which this works on. For tapping, I'm thrilled with this. I use this guy in the lathe also. Another thing I would probably recommend that you get is the basic angle set. There's 2 pieces. You can buy entire sets, but this I use a lot because a lot of times you want to set something. What do I have? I keep using the jaw, but you'll want to clamp something in the vise so that you can do large chamfering. So with this, you have 45 and 60 degrees that you can do angles and all kinds of fancy stuff. They're fairly cheap. And there's also a trick that I show in some of my videos. If you need to make sure something is up absolutely straight in the vise, you'll put your material against this while this is down on the bottom of the vise, and then you can clamp it. Now you know you're perfectly vertical, and you can mill off the top, and you know you're squared up. So you can do that, and or another thing is there's these guys you can get into. Why can I not think of what that's called? A square. Okay. There's all kinds of square sets. I bought the whole set. I do use it quite a bit for different things. You check out your vise. This is how I discovered that my steel jaws were crooked. I put it up there and there was a ton of light going through it. So I might recommend that too. It's pretty inexpensive. So that's pretty much all of the stuff that I would say is somewhat mandatory to be able to start milling. There is optional stuff you may get into. There's boring heads, and I've done a lot. Now again, you don't have that much vertical clearance, so you got to be careful what boring head you buy. This is a DBL202 Criterion. I kind of got this for a steal off of eBay. It's beautiful. It's so nice and tight, and it just works great in the mill. And it came with a straight shaft, so I can put it in a collet. So that's another optional thing. And if you're going to get the boring bars, I would recommend trying to find Criterion boring bars because they're really sharp and they do really nice work. And the last thing that's optional that you may get into is slitting saws. Made my own arbor, but these guys all over the place, dirt cheap, from China, high-speed steel. They're not that great. I did wipe out one wheel going too fast on aluminum. So again, speeds and feeds and lubricant. These, if you get it off of eBay directly out of China or Hong Kong, they'll be $1 or $2 each, and you wait 4 or 5 weeks to get them. But I had bought a whole bunch of different sizes. These are just a couple of them, and then again, you just make your own arbor. So I have slitting saw capability. All right, I think that's all I can say on what I think the newbie, the beginner, just getting a mini mill should look at, should consider, and should buy.